The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
You may have heard me say over the years that the greatest sporting event in recent years, and I say recent because it's 19 years ago, but just an incredible sporting event was the Rose Bowl in January of 2006, where Vince Young and Texas beat a USC team which was gunning for a third national championship. No playoffs in those days, but had they won that game, they would have been declared national champs for the third year in a row. They had Reggie Bush, who was the Heisman Trophy winner, and they were a juggernaut under Pete Carroll. And Vince Young would not let them lose. And they won that game, and it was just a spectacular event to watch live. Last night's first half was nothing like that, but the second half is one of the best second halves I've ever seen in a college football game, as Notre Dame prevailed 27-24. And I will get to Greg McElroy, who had, I think, one of the all-time brain farts last night. I'm surprised that this isn't being played up more, and I'll play the audio of this coming up in the next hour. But first of all, you got to wonder about what the quarterback for Penn State was thinking, Drew Aller. He's already announced that he's coming back next year, and after last night, he now has to do that, because if he was going to go into the NFL draft, what he did last night with 33 seconds to go would cost him millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's a 24-24 game. Penn State has the ball. They're in position to drive down the field and kick the winning field goal, but you got to be careful when you're doing that. It's good to be aggressive, but if you're going to be aggressive, make sure you don't make the big mistake. And sure enough, Drew Aller made the big mistake. He threw across the field into double coverage, and Notre Dame's Christian Gray made a diving interception at the Penn State 42-yard line. That's not field goal range, but Penn State turns it over to a Notre Dame team which has all three of its timeouts and had been running the ball effectively in the second half. First half, they got stoned, and boy, it looked like two different teams with the first half that Notre Dame had versus the second half. They were running the ball, and one of the great touchdowns I've ever seen. If you haven't seen this live, watch it on YouTube. Jeremiah Love would not be denied at the goal line. This is the guy in the pregame. He's got a big brace on his knee. He had re-injured his knee in the playoff game against Georgia. Nobody knew what he was going to be able to do. He was spectacular last night, and no more spectacular than he was on that touchdown where he had people on his back, and just at the right moment, he put the ball over the goal line. Touchdown as Notre Dame was able to tie the game. And as much of a story as they are getting off the mat, I mean, the Northern Illinois loss, as we get further and further away from it, especially if Notre Dame goes on to win the national championship a week from Monday, that's got to go down as one of the biggest upsets in the history of college football. Northern Illinois was a bowl team. They won, I think, 6 or 7 games this year. They played in some Fishdunkin' bowl that I was watching over the holidays where like 3 people were in the stands. But they will always have that. And years from now, even if Notre Dame loses, those guys will walk around and say, we beat the Fighting Irish at South Bend. That was incredible. But what happened last night in the second half was a real testament to the strength of Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman, who has done a great job as a coach. And, you know, a loss like Northern Illinois can derail a season. We've seen that happen before. It did not. His team came back stronger than ever and now is in position to win the national championship. As for Mr. Aller, what do you say? I mean, you're the leader of the team. You're a veteran quarterback. You've fought hard all night. He played a good game up until that point, but this will hang with him probably for the rest of his career. He's got another year at Penn State to overcome it, but this had to be very, very painful for him in the post-game news conference to tell everybody what the hell happened.
Yeah, I mean, I was going through my progression, got to the backside, and honestly, I was just trying to dirt it at his feet, but I mean, I should have just thrown it away when I felt the first two progressions not open just because of the situation we were in, but I was just trying to dirt it at Amari's feet, but just didn't execute what I was trying to do.
Question to our left.
Daniel Gown, minus 24/7. Drew, can you evaluate your performance tonight? What worked and what they might have done to make things more difficult?
I mean, we didn't win the game, so it wasn't good enough. I mean, I think it's plain and simple. So I'll learn from it. Just do everything in my power to get better from it and just grow from it.
What kind of a question is that? Evaluate your performance. It came down to one play. Evaluate your performance. Yeah, everything was really great until, it's like, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? No, he made one of the biggest gaffes you'll ever see in a situation like that. There was no reason to throw the ball where he threw it in that spot. And as bad as Greg McElroy was after the interception, he was spot on there where he said, Drew Aller, what are you doing there? What are you thinking? And that set up the winning field goal. Now, the other thing about what McElroy said, where he says that, make sure you don't get into the end zone too quickly because you're going to leave time on the clock for Penn State. What? It was 28 seconds to go. But on top of that, it's not a sure thing that Notre Dame is going to get the winning field goal because Mitch Jeter had been shaky all season. And on top of that, if you watched any of the other playoff games that had been played up to this point, it was full of last-second kicks that were missed. Texas twice had a chance to put Arizona State away before they had to go to overtime and beat them, and didn't beat them with a walk-off field goal. So that was far from a sure thing. So whatever the hell Greg McElroy was talking about, we'll have to try and figure that out, as I'll play the audio of that in the next hour. Meantime, Marcus Freeman, who, again, is going to go down, especially if he wins the national championship. But his name will be mentioned with the likes of Rockne and Leahy and Lou Holtz, who won a national title, the last national title there in 1988, and just seems to have a way of motivating this team. I don't know if you remember this, but when Brian Kelly left to go to LSU and they showed the announcement in the locker room to the players, the reaction of the players to Freeman being elevated to head coach, they went nuts. They went crazy. They love this guy. They play for this guy, and he is equally good at interviews. This was Scott Van Pelt talking to Freeman last night after the victory.
Your team's ability to overcome, whether it's an injury, a deficit, a penalty, it just feels like you have this endless reservoir of resilience. And I'm asking you to describe how does something like that come to be? How does a culture develop where your group just never blinks no matter the circumstance?
Well, I think one of the most important things that you learn during the most difficult times is how to handle success or how to fight through adversity. And I think the NIU situation, and I know we keep bringing it up, we had to learn how to handle success, and we had to learn to trust each other and trust our training no matter what the situation is. I mean, you're 1-1 and you just have probably one of the most embarrassing losses in college football. And so that moment helped build the necessary strength to do it in this moment. And I reminded the team of that before the game. And so I just think, those low moments in your life, those low moments of this season really build the strength that you need to have success.
You're down 10-0. Penn State's just gone on a length of the field bully ball drive, right? They're punishing you at the line of scrimmage. You're down double digits. Riley Leonard's in the blue tent. Enter Steve Angeli. You end up winning by 3. But you're smiling, and I don't blame you. But what that young man provided in a moment when you all had to have something, I'll let you get your ear back in. But how do you measure what that young man gave you in a moment when you needed something?
Peanut butter and jelly time, man. He's special, man. Oh yeah. In a world, in a situation, in college football right now, with so many guys transferring, you know what? He's a guy that put team first, and that's what I love about Steve more than anything is you know what, he continues to put this place in front of himself. Nobody would have batted an eye and blamed him for going into the transfer portal. But he's put this team in front of himself, and he's earned the trust of his coaches and his teammates through his actions in practice and in the situations he had in the game. And so we had 100% trust in him when we put him in the game to throw the ball. And we knew he was going to execute because he's done it in practice. He's built that trust in practice. And so that was a huge drive for us to get 3 points with your backup quarterback and some backup O-lineman. That was one that I hope is not overlooked. But he is a special player, and he had a huge impact on the outcome of this game.
We don't have a ton of time before they're going to kick me off the air. I just have to ask you if you could give me a thought on Riley Leonard. He's a young man. You guys talk about savages. I was joking earlier. I don't know if he can grow a whisker, and he leads with his faith. But that young man is a savage, too. I'm asking for just what his value to this team was tonight. How do you quantify that?
I mean, you can't by stats. You can by heart. And when it matters the most, Riley Leonard is going to put his body on the line for this program. And he does it over and over and over. And he finds a way to make a play when you need it the most. And we have the utmost confidence in him. No matter what happened the first half or what happened the last play, on this play when we need it the most, we know Riley's going to get it done. And so he did it again tonight. I'm just glad he's healthy and able to I'm glad he's able to come back today, but also he'll be healthy for the next one. And so there's a lot of confidence with him having the ball in his hands in the most crucial moments of the game.
That is an interesting juxtaposition on the two quarterbacks. And I don't blame Marcus Freeman for what he says, but again, Riley Leonard was quarterback for hire. Yeah, he played at Duke. He came for 1 year to Notre Dame. And you almost heard Freeman get a little bit emotional talking about the backup quarterback who stayed. And that's college football these days. And, as he said, he would not have blamed him for leaving, but he stayed, helped them in this spot. That's why I've always had such great respect for Jalen Hurts. What Jalen Hurts did, I know it's a different era of college football, but he got benched in the national championship game for Tua Tagovailoa, who led them to victory. And knowing that he would be the backup after starting every game for 2 years, knowing he would be the backup, came back for another year at Alabama. That's some class. That's some maturity. And it's no surprise that he's become this good in the NFL, although a lot of people overlooked him because they didn't think he was an NFL quarterback, but clearly he is. And if all goes well for the Commanders, I think they're likely to see him next weekend. Meantime, preparations for this game go on in Ashburn today. And Joe Whitt, the defensive coordinator, held his news conference yesterday. Coordinators speak every Thursday, and getting ready for the rematch. If you forgot the numbers on Baker Mayfield from the first game, which, you look at the score, and it's really more lopsided than that. Tampa Bay won 37-20, and although the Commanders got it to, I think, 24-13? Yeah, 23-14. They got it that close in the third quarter. Tampa Bay was able to pretty much put it away. In that game, Mayfield, 24 of 30 for 289 yards. He had a quarterback rating with 4 touchdown passes of 146.4. That's nearly perfect. And so as Joe Whitt gets ready to face him again, can't say enough good things about number 6.
Been really impressed with Baker Mayfield. I mean, this guy has played at a really, really high level. He can escape the pocket as good as anybody in the league, okay? We missed 5 sacks on him the first time, but we weren't the only ones. There have been plenty of teams to go in there and try to hit him. He has the ability to step up and keep his eyes down the field. And he's just been playing. He's a competitive player, So I take my hat off to him. Mike is back, another 1,000 yards. He does it every year. So that's always going to be a challenge. They have a really good offensive line, young running backs that run hard. Their screen game is very good. They're a dual threat, fast pace. When I say fast pace, they get to their spaces fast in the pass game, and then they get vertical, good run after catch, and they're good after contact with the backs. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a challenging game, but it'll be a fun one.
You heard Whitt say that they missed 5 sacks on Baker Mayfield. If you watch the game, those should have been 5 for 5. They had him wrapped up, just couldn't bring him to the ground. So the way to tackle number 6 is this way, says Whitt.
You have to treat him and hit him like he's a running back while he's in the pocket. Understanding that, all right, when he's outside the pocket, he doesn't get the protection. But when he's in the pocket, we got to stay shoulders to thighs, all right? But we have to go in there and hit him like he's a running back. If we go in there and hit him like he's a little quarterback, you're going to come off. And then he has a good job of sliding up and out, and he's keeping his eyes downfield. I know he does scramble, but he's scrambling to throw. All right, he's just playing high-level ball. And so, we just got to get him on the ground.
Yeah, that's easier said than done. The other thing about this defense going into this game versus the one that faced the Bucs in Week 1, it's a totally revamped defense, new linebackers, new guys in the secondary, new defensive coordinator, and I think we overlooked how shaky the defensive performance was in this game because there was so much attention on Jaden Daniels. And while the numbers are really great from his first game as a pro, he's 17 of 24 for 184 yards passing, 16 carries for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's what the focus was. Oh, my God, he's running 16 times. He's not going to be around in November, maybe not even in October. Come on. Well, I mean, the defense had its real struggles. And as you look back on the numbers, they gave up almost 400 yards in that game. And on third down, Tampa went 9 for 13 in this game. That was a real problem. Whitt says, much like the improvement of Jaden Daniels from Week 1 through the end of the season, he's seen the same thing with his defense.
If you look at the first 3 games, all right, we were, 31st in pass defense? All right, we finished 3rd. Okay, we were probably 31st in percentage. We finished 3rd. Third down, we've been up and down. Right before this last game, we were teetering in the top 10. We were horrible then, So, the defense has really trended in the right direction. So the points have been down. So the defense is just different.
It is different. Some injuries, and the big thing is Marshawn Lattimore. I think this was the biggest news of the week, that Marshawn Lattimore practiced fully. And he is going to be really key in this game because they have to find a way to stop Mike Evans. Now, amazingly, as lopsided as that game was, he didn't really kill him there. He had 5 catches for 61 yards. He did catch the 2 touchdowns, which is not good, but it wasn't like he had a 100-yard receiving day. And if you look at the history, Lattimore has done well against Mike Evans, and that's going to be a big thing to watch on Sunday night. Coming up, a little preview on the Ravens. Kyle Van Noy talking to Rich Eisen yesterday about this matchup with the Steelers on Sunday. Zach Ertz getting ready for another playoff run. He's won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia, and now we'll start the march to try to get to another one. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We got Ravens preview coming up at 10:30, but I want to spend a couple of minutes here on this Ravens-Steelers matchup for Sunday. It's remarkable to me that you have division rivals, teams that play each other twice a year, every year, at least twice a year. And the spread is what it is. Now, I know that the Steelers have lost their last 4 games, and the Ravens look like they've gotten progressively better as the season goes on. But a 9.5-point spread for a rivalry where you sometimes say, oh, throw out the record books because you never know what's going to happen between these two teams. 9.5 points is a lot of points. But, maybe this is the year. And I think if you look at the storylines for all 6 of the playoff games, this one has the most. You got the 2 long-time coaches in John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin, and, what's going to happen to one or the other if they lose the game. There's even some rumblings that somehow Mike Tomlin might be out. I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think John Harbaugh is necessarily going to be shown the door. But it's a first-round game, so it ramps up the pressure really on both teams. If you make it to the divisional round, it's a little less. If you make it to the conference championship, as Baltimore did last year, you say, well, you're 1 foot away. It's like the old Bum Phillips line when they lost to the Steelers. He said, this year we knocked on the door, and next year we're going to kick the damn door down. They didn't do it, But it was a great line, and it fired up a lot of people at the Astrodome who had come to celebrate the fact that those Oilers with Earl Campbell were in the playoffs. But that's ancient history, and you probably don't remember that. But I do. Anyway, Kyle Van Noy, who's one of the great comeback stories. He doesn't like to call himself a comeback story, but he was on his couch at the beginning of last season. This guy with 2 Super Bowl rings from New England. And the Ravens said, let's see what we got. We need some depth at linebacker, had a couple of injuries, and he's had a spectacular year. 11.5 sacks, best sack year of his career, and now is one of the key players as they head into tomorrow night's game against Pittsburgh. And he talked to Rich Eisen about how far this team can go, and is this the year that they can win it all?
If I say no, I would be dumb, right? But I think we are. Like, we have all the pieces. You know, it starts with the ownership. They do a really good job, and it goes all the way down to the players. We have the right players at the right time, the right coaches, and we're hungry. I think a lot of us experienced something last year that we don't want to experience again, and we're going to fight like hell to continue that path and to repent for our sins from last year. And then this new team that we have this year, make the most of it. Just so excited to be back in here, especially after the road that we have, starting 0-2, battling our way through the middle of the season defensively, not going as well as we wanted to early. And then, you know, MVP Lamar having our back for a while till we could get things corrected, and then taking off from there, and then finally look like a football team going into the playoffs, going against the Steelers, a friendly foe of ours. And it's going to be a good competition game, and we're excited to host them at the bank.
So let me take a better crack at the question. Instead of asking a yes or no question, how does this remind you of any of your previous championship seasons, Kyle?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think football-wise, it starts with the quarterback. You have an extremely good quarterback in Lamar Jackson, do it all. Obviously, he's running a little bit more than Tommy, but just a little bit.
Right.
But just the IQ of Lamar being in his second year of the system, being in control, taking the offense to new heights with his superstar next to him, Derrick Henry, leaning on that run game anytime you want. Derrick's been awesome for us, awesome in the locker room. I mean, he had his speech after our game, like it was time. And that's kind of the attitude we have. We're all hungry. The guys that we've come back on the team and the new guys we added, we're really hungry because we feel like we have a chance. And, you know, defensively, we've gotten so much better. So you have the makeups of a championship football team. We just got to go put it out there and, you know, play complimentary football and take care of the football.
Although I think Tommy, who you referred to, Tom Brady, would probably say to you, hey, you know, he was the king of the sneaks. You know what I mean? Like, he was getting
one. Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? The way that Lamar gets 50 in a chunk, Tom would get 1 in a chunk, man. Like, and he didn't need his tush pushed. You know what I mean? Like, he would just get it himself.
Yeah.
Right?
And he would use his favorite his favorite code word was dog. That's when you knew what it was. Dog.
Ah, okay. Well, that would have been information that would have been useful about 10 years ago for a lot of teams.
Yeah. When he played at Tampa, we were waiting for it on every short yardage. We're like, are you going to say it or what?
That is funny. So, you're in year 11, Kyle, and you're not just in year 11. You just set a career high in sacks and tackles for loss and quarterback hits. You lead your defense in sacks. What do you owe this, Kyle?
I think it's mentality. My mentality is different. I'm kind of cut from the old school cloth of football. I played with a damn broken face for a while. So just that mindset of nothing, I'm just built different, and just believe that every day, that chip on my shoulder. I still feel like got a lot to prove. I still feel like I'm that player being overlooked at Detroit Lions before I got traded. I'll never forget those moments and those times I had there, and I'll forever have a chip on my shoulder. Just felt like I've always been overlooked. And that's the kind of mindset I have each and every day, just that standard of excellence, and I'm always chasing to be great.
Wouldn't that be something if you see the Detroit Lions in New Orleans in a couple of weeks? Wouldn't that be something, huh? Full circle here?
See, now I gotta pull my old PR moves, right? I gotta say I'm just worried about this week.
1 week at a time. Now, there's big concern for the Ravens offensively because Zay Flowers has been declared out. Not a big surprise after he hurt his knee in Cleveland last weekend. He's coming off a Pro Bowl year, 74 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. And they would like to have him. But I would say this about this particular game and how cold it's going to be and the way these teams play. He's important to what they do. But I believe, and Lamar, of course, is the most important player. The quarterback always is, and he could win his 3rd MVP. But I think Derrick Henry is the key to this game. They gotta pound him. He's got to get over 100 yards. They got to control the football, and I think they will with him. And Lamar said something interesting the other day. He said nobody likes to play in the cold. He said, but nobody wants to hit a 247-pound running back. And if he gets a full head of steam, watch out. And he's got the stiff arm. I mean, this should be a game where Derrick Henry gets over 100 yards. And if he does, I think the Ravens are going to win the game. And you may have heard me tell this story before, but I remember talking to Brig Owens. And Brig Owens played, 13, 14 years here. But his first year was with the Dallas Cowboys. And he was a defensive back, excellent defensive back, borderline Hall of Fame player. And he said the Cowboys are getting ready to play the Cleveland Browns. And Tom Landry says, look, if Jim Brown gets in the open field, do not try to tackle him alone. You will get hurt. Wait for some help. And I think that Derrick Henry, nobody will compare him to Jim Brown because Jim Brown played in a different era. And he was more dominant in his era than Derrick Henry is in his now because of the size of the defensive players and the speed and all that. Jim Brown was playing at probably like 225, and you had linebackers that were 210 and didn't have speed and strength, and nobody hit the weight room like they do now. But you take Derrick Henry back to the 1960s, that's Jim Brown. I mean, he's that good. So I think he is the biggest key for the Ravens tomorrow. While you'd like to have Zay Flowers, save him for the following week. And the other thing about the Ravens that I've noticed in the last few years, Lamar stayed healthy last year, but the 2 previous years, he missed the last 5 games of the season with injuries that were never fully explained. I mean, they're very good at playing the 3-card Monty with these injuries. They don't tell you exactly what it is. They did say that the knee injury was not season-ending, but there was no information given by John Harbaugh on this. Just, nope, not going to be available this week. We'll wait till next week and see. So I think they can win without him, but you would like to have him as they move on in the playoffs. Had his best year, Pro Bowl season. Zach Ertz, this has been, I would think that without Sam Darnold, who is hands down the comeback player of the year, without him, Zach Ertz would get some consideration for that. Remember how his season went last year? He got cut. He got cut by the Arizona Cardinals like 7 games into the year. Season wasn't even half over. And here's a guy who was a key contributor to Philadelphia on some really good teams, including one that won the Super Bowl. And nobody took a flyer on him for the second half of the season. Finally, Detroit signed him when they had a bunch of injuries. And had they made it to the Super Bowl, he would have played in that. But other than that, he didn't really get a sniff. And I remember when they signed him here, it was like, okay, kick the tires, see what's left. They're not investing a lot of money in the contract. If it works, it works. If not, okay. He winds up being their second leading receiver. And if you watch the season unfold, he has been key in so many situations, not just the game-winning catch against Atlanta to clinch the playoffs, but time after time after time, he makes big, big catches throughout the season. So this has been a big comeback year for him and someone that they can lean on with playoff experience as they start their run on Sunday night.
Obviously, it feels good to be a part of a winning team again and have an impactful role. But I don't look at this as a revenge tour, and it's all about me, really. Obviously, last year was extremely difficult for me individually. once Cliff left Arizona and I hurt my knee that same year. Last year was just extremely tough, and so for me to just be able to come out here and really enjoy football again, really enjoy the process with the guys, and I still feel like I had good football in myself, and I just needed a really good opportunity and being around people that believed in me. And Cliff and DQ have just been so amazing to me, to my family, and so it's just been awesome to repay their faith in me.
The margin for error in these playoff games are so slim. In your experiences during playoff games, what ultimately is the difference in these games?
All football games come down to execution. You can't put any more merit on this being any different than the other games. It's still the same things that determined wins and losses in the regular season are still the same things that determine the playoffs. Whoever scores more points is going to win the football game. That's still the rule. So for us, it's just going out there, limiting the turnovers, having as many explosive plays as possible, and find a way to win the game. Whether we score 10 points and win or 30 points and win, it's irrelevant to us. We just got to find a way to win.
Yeah, in that first game of the year, Ertz was okay. He had 3 catches for 28 yards, and okay, he had a 12-yard catch, and kind of thought, okay, good to have him around. As the year has unfolded, he's become more and more valuable. On the other side of the coin is Terry McLaurin, who had a Pro Bowl season, set the team record with 13 touchdown catches, and in the second half of the season especially, or maybe even really the middle to second half, the connection that he had with Jaden Daniels was just magic, and time after time after time they made big plays, and it really connected in that Cincinnati game, which was the third game of the year, where Jaden Daniels knew he was going to take a big hit, and he delivered the ball, and Terry caught it for the winning touchdown, and it was kind of like the start of a beautiful friendship. Do you remember what was going on here in the first 2 weeks of the season? Terry McLaurin, I believe, through 2 games had 6 catches for 40 yards. Yeah. And the number for the first game, the numbers that he had in that opening game where they lost to Tampa 37-20. Terry McLaurin was only targeted 4 times. He caught 2 passes for 17 yards. And it's this is not good. He's a Pro Bowl level player. He's your most important weapon. And this kid, he can't be running the ball 16 times a game. He's got to be looking for Terry McLaurin. Well, things have obviously improved since then, and McLaurin, looking back on Game 1 and now going into what is Game 18 of the season, has this view.
We're a completely different team now than we were then, and it's probably same with them. Both teams have improved. Both teams have had to adjust, and I think we've really found an identity at this point of the season, whereas that was our first game of the season. That was Jaden's first NFL snaps, and we weren't perfect by no stretch of the imagination, but you could still see the intensity in which we played with. But now at this time of the season, I feel like our execution is a lot better and needs to be a lot better. And over the last few weeks, I think we've gotten off to a few slow starts, and if we can get out and put some points on the board early, allow our defense to kind of play with a lead, I think that gives us a chance to be successful. For us, it means protecting the football. It means getting those first downs and being in second and manageable, third and manageable, so we're not behind the sticks and they can't pin their ears back. But I'm excited to see what this game's going to look like for us. And the thing about our preparation is that's something we take our pride in. And I think we're having a great week of preparation so far, and we're looking to compete against a really good team. They have a lot of playoff experience, a lot of veteran players, so it's going to be a 4-quarter battle.
On Monday, with all the close games you guys have had this season, DQ said, "We like crazy." That was his quote. Yeah. So with all these close games you've experienced during the regular season, how can that maybe help in the playoffs when it comes crunch time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of times teams possibly struggle when those gotta-have-it situations or those 2-minute, crunch time moments. And for us, we've had plenty of experience over the course of the season having success in those moments, whether it's drives before halftime, drives at the end of the game, having to come back and put points on the board, getting a stop, the defense had to do in New Orleans. So we've seen just about every scenario there is, and I guarantee in the playoffs is going to be something different. But I think we're battle tested and ready for those moments.
We shall see. Late kickoff on Sunday night, as I think it was 8:15. Thank you very much. I like to go to bed early, but okay. Yeah, well, got that one out. And the Commanders are 3-point underdogs going into that game. All right, coming up in the next hour, Ravens preview plus Brady Quinn with a preview of tonight's playoff game between Ohio State and Texas. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. So back in the summertime when you first started hearing about the Commanders and this kid, Jaden Daniels, and how good he looked and how mature he is, did you really think that you'd be going into playoff weekend with a playoff game scheduled for the Commanders? They hadn't been in 4 years. Adam Peters had totally overhauled the roster. Had new head coach, new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator. You know, a season where they win 6-7 games, that's a great year. They won 12. They won 12 games. And just remarkable if you not just pay attention to what's going on in the coverage of Ashburn, but this is what used to happen when the Redskins would make their run at this time of year. And if you watch the local news, you're seeing them doing stories of people on the street wearing their Commanders gear. They've gone into the schools where the kids are all celebrating the run. I mean, the whole town turns on. This is really an odd town in that it's the most powerful city in the world. It's the hub of the national government. The president is here, the White House, the whole thing. Yet, we sometimes turn into like a high school when the team is good. It's like a strange thing. And people who have been here for a long time like I have, I've kind of gotten used to it. But if you've come in from another town, where a lot of people do, it's still very much a transient town, though there are a lot of people like me who've lived here most of their lives, and my family has lived here. I'm third generation from this area. But everybody gets turned on when the team is good. It's a lot of fun. And however this season ends, whether it ends on Sunday night or amazingly, if it ends sometime next month in New Orleans, it's been absolutely remarkable, and we will take a further look at this. We do Ravens preview every Friday, and Isaac Goon Harris is responsible for booking the guest. And clearly, after listening to me with my many references to the last century, 70s and 80s, has decided to expand my horizon a little bit. So tell everybody who our guests will be at 10:30 today.
At 10:30, we will have the Kid Gowie, content creator from Baltimore and a lifelong Baltimore Ravens fan, joining us at 10:30 for a Ravens preview.
The Kid Gowie. Does he go by Duck Kid? Do people call him Duff for short? How will I address him?
You will address him by saying the Kid Gowie, but then just afterward, just Gowie.
Gowie. Okay,
yeah, Gowie.
Goes by Gowie. And when you say content creator, does he have a show, or how does this work?
Well, by content creator, he creates content just describing on sports. So he's more of a independent commentator talking about everyday sports, but also he talks about a lot about the Ravens since it's his hometown team.
Okay, and this is up on what, YouTube?
Yep, on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, and as well on his website.
Okay, so this is the new media that I have to get used to. I am still on AM radio, which is where I started 48 years ago. And where I will end. I mean, there won't be. I will not be a social. What do they call them?
Social media influencer.
Yeah, I won't be that. My influence is limited, and it's limited in my own home. But I'm very interested to talking to the Kid Gowie, who I can call Gowie, and we'll see how this goes. This should be fun. I mean, who's not up for new experiences? Anyway, last night I'm watching the game, and I don't usually stay up that late, but after pretty dull first half. I mean, it was what it was predicted to be. Two teams were going to run the ball, but it was seemingly a lopsided game for Penn State. I didn't think that Notre Dame was necessarily going to come back. They couldn't run the ball in the first half. They did get on the board with a field goal with their backup quarterback, with the starter injured in that game. But he came back, and Notre Dame played a great second half. In fact, the second half was one of the best I've ever seen in a college football game. It was really exciting, going back and forth, and Notre Dame prevailed 27-24. But here's the situation, and I don't know what Greg McElroy was thinking. I've watched him throughout the years he's been out of football. He was a quarterback at Alabama. They won a couple of national titles, and I think he played in the NFL for a while. But he has, I thought, been a good and solid analyst for college football. So here's the circumstance. And this was the big error of the game. Drew Aller Penn State quarterback, has already announced he's coming back, and he is a good thing because if he had announced for the draft, this would have been a multi-million-dollar interception. He threw an interception late in the game, 33 seconds to go. Christian Gray of Notre Dame intercepted at the Penn State 42-yard line, and Notre Dame has all their timeouts. They're all set up to win the game with a field goal. There's only 33 seconds to go. They run a play. And then, listen to this. This is Greg McElroy. It's a 24-24 game. Notre Dame is not yet in field goal range. They have a kicker who came through for them, Mitch Jeter, who did kick the game-winning field goal. But this is a guy who had struggled all year long. And we had seen, what had we seen in the playoff games previously? Choke after choke after choke by the kickers. Texas all set to put away Arizona State. Last play of the game, what is it, like a 38-yard field goal? Senior, veteran guy, up to the moment. Steve Sarkisian pats him on the cheek. You know what to do. Go out, win the game. Choke. Goes to overtime. So this is all we've seen. Listen to what Greg McElroy says with Notre Dame in possession of the ball with all of 28 seconds to go.
One thing that now Marcus Freeman can also acknowledge here at some point is, hey, we don't want to score too quick here. So if you break free...
Well, I think they're playing for the field goal. Right? They're going to run a couple more plays and try to kick it on 4th down if it works out that way.
Right.
Or get another 1st down and kick it on what they hope will be the last play.
But if you break free, and right there, Riley Leonard wasn't far from potentially squeaking there and maybe finding a lot of open space. So remind your guys, here, no need to score a touchdown. You need to kneel on it at the 3-yard line, and we take a couple more knees, no problem. Do not find the end zone here to give Penn State a chance to go down and potentially tie it with their own touchdown.
Even if you could break free and score from here, because where they are right now, this is far from a gimme field goal. So you're saying run down close and stop.
Yes, get down to the 5-yard line, slide down on your behind, kneel it 3 times, force them to use the timeout to kick the game winner.
What are you talking about? What in the hell are you talking about? You're telling me that if Riley Leonard or somebody else scores a touchdown with, let's say, 20, conservatively, it takes them 8 seconds to get down the field. With 25 seconds left on the clock, and you're up 7, that's not a better circumstance than running the clock down and taking your chances on a field goal from a shaky field goal kicker in a period of time here in these playoffs where we've seen nothing but chokes from kickers. What are you talking about? Everybody at home, I would assume, at least I was, and I've seen a lot of things on social media about this, are saying to themselves, Greg McElroy, what are you thinking? What are you thinking there? That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Of course, if you can score a touchdown, you take a touchdown. And, okay, theoretically, you kick the extra point, and then you're turning it over to Penn State, and the worst case scenario is that they score a touchdown and kick the extra point, but more than likely they're going to go for 2 or I don't even know. But, I mean, it's just mind-blowing that he would say that. I just, and I'm assuming that somebody's had a conversation with him today. It's not like there were 3 minutes left on the clock. Now, Penn State did have a couple of timeouts left. I'll give them that. But come on. You're really going to think? You kick it out of the end zone, and you take your chances that they can't go. And in college, when you kick it out of the end zone, they don't get it at the 30 like the pros. They get it at the 25. So you're asking them to go that distance in like 25 seconds, and all you have to do is keep them out of the end zone. A field goal doesn't do them any good. Come on. What the hell are you thinking there? That was mind-blowing. All right, tonight we got the other half of the bracket as Ohio State and Texas face off. And, boy, the storylines in this are crazy. Ryan Day, who's the coach at Ohio State, could win the national championship, and there would be pressure to fire him because he lost to Michigan. Quinn Ewers could win the national championship for Texas and transfer because Arch Manning's ready to go. Quinn Ewers not ready to go to the NFL. And he's got another year of eligibility, which speculation is he will spend at the University of Miami. Nuts. College football 2025. Brady Quinn, former Notre Dame quarterback, now part of the Fox crew, on with Dan Patrick yesterday with what he's looking at tonight against as Texas takes on Ohio State.
The line's sitting right now at 6 at this point. I think, again, it comes down to like both these teams playing to their potential. We've seen Ohio State do that the past 2 weeks, and everyone goes, my goodness, that's the best team in the country, and it's not even close. And on the flip side, we watch Texas, and it feels like at times, not that they get disinterested, and, I'm not going to play on that narrative, but it doesn't feel like they ever play up to their potential. So I don't know if they can find that, if Quinn Ewers and this offense can find more of that consistently, find more of that like big play ability to break off, versus Ohio State like they did and have so far in this playoff. I mean, it's like between Oregon and Tennessee, and they put their foot on the gas. It's not even close. And I obviously have a ton of respect for Dan Lanning, the job he did at Oregon this year. So that to me, that Ohio State team, it's more about, can they continue the momentum? Can they continue to keep playing at the level which they have now the past 2 games? If they have, no one can touch them. Like this spread, in my opinion, should be like 9.5 if Ohio State's going to be the team we saw the first 2 games so far in the playoff.
What if Quinn Ewers wins the national championship and then has to leave Texas?
It's a great hypothetical to throw out there, but if he's leaving Texas after winning the national championship, he's going to be going to the draft. Like everyone wants to make this like some big conversation about, the Arch Manning and he's going to be the guy next year. And then that's all, true. But if I'm Quinn Ewers and then that scenario plays itself out, I'm looking at this quarterback draft class and going, hold on a second. Like Shedeur looks to be the number 1 guy based on the tape and film and all that, but like, why can't Quinn be the next guy based on these evaluations? He's played really well throughout his career in big games. He's got the arm strength. He's got the ability. He's been tough this year playing through injury. I'm not sure in a year where with the tape that Carson Beck put out there, he's coming off an injury. Cam Ward was special and dynamic, but people are going to have concerns, about, operating an NFL offense, all those things that come up that people try to, draw and take away from what they see on tape. And so why not, if you're Quinn Ewers, try to be a part of this quarterback draft class, playing on all that momentum that you would be getting off a national championship?
Yeah, I guess. But also he must have talked to enough people that say, yeah, you're not the guy. And then the Arch Manning circumstance is really bizarre in that Manning has patiently waited, which he can do, and probably was advised by his dad and his father. Father didn't play in the pros, but his 2 uncles did. And they said, take your time. Body will mature. There'll be plenty of money. He's already reported he's making $3.5 million anyway to be there. $3.5 million as a backup, which is more than he'd make in the pros as a backup. But he's ready to go, and he said he's coming back. And I don't think, if Quinn Ewers comes back, he's at the very least will be told, well, it's a wide open competition here, or we're giving Arch the leg up, and you got to be significantly better to beat him out. I think. It just wouldn't make sense if they both come back next year. But that would be something if he wins the national title and leaves and goes and plays someplace else because he's not wanted at Texas. That's just a mind-blowing situation which college football has morphed into. You also heard Brady Quinn mention Carson Beck. Carson Beck is now in a spot where he's got to transfer, which doesn't make any sense to me either, because what was the biggest reason that Georgia lost to Notre Dame in the playoff? Carson Beck was hurt. The backup quarterback wasn't good enough. It was his first start ever, even though he'd been in the program for 2 years. So Carson Beck, who has now had Tommy John surgery, injured his elbow in the SEC championship game against Texas, and now he's entering the transfer portal, and he's going to play another year, and sources are Miami's interested in him too. I'm going to take one of them. I don't think they take both Ewers and Beck, but here's a guy who would seem that as a 2-year starter at Georgia, went 24-3, went into this season as the potential number 1 pick. That's what Mel Kiper said. You watch out, Carson Beck could be that. Threw for 3,400 yards, 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions this year. Great year, great team. That they would want him back. If he's going to play another year of college football, do it here in Georgia. But they can't. They can't do that. So in order to improve his draft stock and prove that he's healthy, because the surgery that he had won't allow him to throw until March, and maybe even later than that. So clearly a team who wants him would just have to be enamored with him and think that this guy can really be great to take him. Otherwise, you may be getting damaged goods. And just because Brock Purdy came back from the same surgery and looked really good doesn't mean that's necessarily going to happen with Carson Beck. So this is a weird world we're living in here. And then the Ryan Day story. Ryan Day could win a national championship, which would calm all the people in Columbus who say, 4 straight losses to Michigan, off with his head. And he may say, okay, well, shut up. You just won the national championship. Isn't that bigger than beating Michigan? Maybe not. Maybe not, especially since he's lost to him 4 times. And he said recently in an interview that what happened in the game against Michigan, and I watched that and I looked at his face after the game and watched the press conference, it did look like somebody died. And he said it was among the worst things that had ever happened in his life, topped only by the death of his father. So it's suggested in a USA Today column, win the national championship, resign, take a year off, recharge your batteries, and then wait for the SEC. And you got many question marks in that conference as well. Brett Venables at Oklahoma, Billy Napier at Florida, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, Brian Kelly at LSU, and even Kalen DeBoer, who's had only 1 year at Alabama, but he lost 4 games there. And you say, well, isn't Alabama the pressure cooker? Yeah, it is, but if you lose to Auburn, it's not the same as losing to Michigan. And I just wonder if that might be the move. He's 45 years old. He will have a national championship in his pocket, and he might say, I'm good. I've made a lot of money. I'm going to sit out. Now, he does have a big advantage at Ohio State. They got a payroll of reportedly $20 million, and he's got a wide receiver there in Smith that if the draft experts say this, if the draft was held today, he would be the number 1 pick. Forget all the quarterbacks, forget Shedeur Sanders, forget Travis Hunter, any of those guys. He'd be the number 1 pick. So he does, and he's got to come back for 2 more years. But that's the state of college football, that a quarterback can win a national championship and transfer with eligibility left, and a coach can win a national title and resign. That's nutso. Back to the NFL. Reflection time, I should say, with what Dan Quinn said in his news conference the other day about the season and so forth. And we're looking now as things go full circle. They started the season in Tampa. They're going back to Tampa in the playoff game. And as Cliff Kingsbury held his news conference yesterday, one of the big questions was, what have you seen since game 1 of Jaden Daniels against Tampa, where he ran for 16 times, didn't throw a touchdown pass, and now 17 games later, where he is?
Everything, really. I think just understanding the system. The first game, we didn't know what we were or who we were, what he was. And so even me calling plays and understanding how to put him in better situations to be successful, and all the skill guys. How do we use this guy? So we've evolved a bunch, but I think you just watch his game and the way he played that first game. I mean, the very first pass he threw for like -20, like a backwards pass. And he's just come a long way. So it's a lot of hard work, a lot of mental reps. And so I'm anxious to see the second time around, how far we've come as an entire unit.
Is there a moment for you with him that stands out, whether it's a throw or anything like that, more than others for him?
Yeah, I think the biggest one was the Cincy game for me. It's like crunch time. It's that last, 3rd or 4th down maybe, and I screwed up the play call, and so he just waves me off like I got it, and he throws a touchdown to Terry. It's like, all right, you got it, dog. So I think it was more like that's where it's like, okay, he's very comfortable in the system, understanding what we're trying to accomplish, and in those moments he wants the ball in his hands, and as a play caller, that's what you hope for at that position.
What have you seen from him just in his ability to compartmentalize and focus on what he needs to now and other stuff when he needs to?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of his strongest traits, is that he can process it really quickly and be on to the next play. He's not lingering on himself. He wants to be perfect. He wants to play great. He wants to win every rep, but once the play is over, he's on to the next one really quickly, and that's not easy to do as a young player or an established player even in this league, because you're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to have plays you wish you had back, but he can process it, move on. He can take hard coaching, and nobody's harder on themselves than him immediately after, and he's one of those guys that will give you the proper feedback as soon as you get to him. Hey, I should have done this, should have done that, and so it really makes it, my job a lot easier when he's already kind of self-diagnosed what's going on the play.
I think what he described there, the Cincinnati game, the game-winning throw to Terry McLaurin, that was really breakout for both of them, because they really struggled in their connections in the first 2 games. The Tampa loss and the Giants win where they didn't score a touchdown. They got 7 field goals. I know that seems centuries ago, but that was actually this past season. That the offensive coordinator screws up the play. The quarterback, playing in his 3rd NFL game, says, "Don't worry, I got it," and calls the play, whatever it was, and knows that he's going to take a shot. The way that was set up was there was an unblocked player, the way that they had set it up, and he was going to be hit as he threw. He knew that. He knew what the play was. He waved off the defensive coordinator and threw the touchdown. Now, years ago, I guess, maybe the NFL was simpler. Maybe it wasn't. But, the people who look at the league now say it's a lot more complex. I don't know. But that's the way things used to work. The quarterback called the plays. Vince Lombardi, who was a great coach, obviously, but was the offensive coordinator with the New York Giants. They had a coach, I forget what his name was, but he had Vince Lombardi as the offensive coordinator and Tom Landry as the defensive coordinator. But with the Green Bay Packers, Bart Starr called the plays. Lombardi didn't call the plays. He had a defensive coordinator in Phil Bankston, who set up whatever defense they needed to have, substituted, so forth. But it was Lombardi who just basically ranted on the sidelines. He was great at motivational speeches and working his team to get ready and would work on the game plan and things like that. But the quarterback called the plays. And so in this day and age, when a quarterback calls a play to win the game and is in his 3rd game as a pro and understands the offense enough to just wave off Cliff Kingsbury and say, I got it, and get it done. Just remarkable. One more from Cliff Kingsbury, and this is something that I think is a concern going into this game and however far they go this year. If you've been watching recently, and this is just anecdotal, but I don't know what the exact numbers are, but Jaden Daniels has taken more sacks. He was sacked 47 times this year. Not as alarming as it was last year with Sam Howell, but he's been sacked a lot, and he seems to have been sacked more and more. Some of that, as Kingsbury says, is a result of the running game, but there are other issues with that, and this was his answer to how things have changed in just the last few games.
The one thing that's shown up, I think, I would say probably the last month when we've had to put the ball in his hands more because the run game hasn't been there. We played good teams that are good against the run, but I'd say just the negative plays, like the first, second down sacks, the sack number in general has gone up, and some of that's he's trying to take over and make the play. But I think for the most part, if you put those out, like he's going to the right place with the ball the majority of the time.
What was your biggest lesson coming out of that first Tampa Bay game about figuring out who you guys were?
Yeah, we needed to play with more tempo, more rhythm. We were doing a bunch of substituting and really slowing the game down, thinking that would help him, and I think it hurt us as a unit. We played better with more rhythm and pace and him getting on the ball and being able to have more time on the play clock to analyze and see what the defense is doing. And we really subbed a bunch. We played in some sets that were not as probably dynamic or having our best 4 or 5 skill players on the field at the same time. And I thought the coaching staff did a nice job of recognizing that and adjusting that moving forward.
Yeah, the hurry up has really been a difference, but where Kingsbury says he's holding the ball and trying to make the play, that's a concerning thing. That you would have thought would have shown up more earlier in the season. He did take a couple of sacks in the first game, but he's taking more and more sacks, and it's the result of a running game that is really stalled out. I wonder how much we'll see Chris Rodriguez. Didn't play at all last week. Kind of a surprise in Dallas that they didn't use him. Maybe they were intent on getting Brian Robinson on track, and Robinson had not like Philadelphia where he fumbled twice, but in the Dallas game, he had 10 yards rushing on 5 carries. Yeah, that's a real problem. That's a real concern. And Robinson saying earlier this week, we're right where we want to be with the running game. No, you're not. No, you're not. Maybe there's some breakout stuff that you're saving for the playoffs, but they need production out of him. That's going to be key. Watching Brian Robinson and whether he's going to be able to give them an opportunity to hang on to the football. Remember those drives that they had at the beginning of the year? Long drives. Tress Way never got on the field. That has changed in recent weeks. Now, they've had this incredible clutch gene where they pull out these games that are seemingly lost. But the ability to run the ball, and what Kingsbury says about Jaden holding the ball too long, very crucial in all of this. Very, very crucial. So we'll see Sunday night, and looking forward to Monday morning when we discuss all that. Meantime, we got Ravens preview coming up next, and we're ready for this. The Kid Gowie will join us next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.